Sometimes a glance, a smile, and a few silent moments are enough to begin a story that only ends in heartbreak. It all started with something so small that I could have ignored it forever. But maybe some stories find their way into your life whether you accept them or not. Her name was Emily, a married woman whose life looked perfect to anyone on the outside of a beautiful home. A responsible husband, and a routine that seemed peaceful and complete. We worked in the same office, and at first, our connection was purely formal occasional greetings, small talk, and then back to our own work. But over time, something began to change. And it changed so slowly that I didn't even realize it at first. The first thing I noticed was her eyes. They weren't just normal glances. They lingered, carrying a question, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then she started finding reasons to talk to me, small questions she could have asked anyone else. Yet she chose me, stretching conversations longer than necessary, as if she was trying to hold on to time itself. There was a softness in her voice now, and a strange warmth in her presence that felt far beyond a normal coworker. She remembered the smallest details about my life, things even I would sometimes forget. And when she brought them up, it surprised me and pulled me in at the same time. One evening, we stayed late at the office. Just the two of us, surrounded by silence, the faint sound of keyboards, and the quiet awareness of each other's presence. I looked at her, and for the first time, I noticed something in her smile, a hint of sadness that had never been there before. Then she softly asked, "Do you ever feel like you're stuck in your own life?" That question carried more than just words. It held an entire story within it. A sense of incompleteness, a quiet pain, a void she perhaps didn't fully understand herself. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just coincidence, nor was it an ordinary friendship. It was turning into something deeper, something emotionally intense, and dangerously complex. Because it held everything that pulls a person beyond their limits. Attention, understanding, and the powerful feeling of truly being seen. And maybe that was the exact moment where the story shifted into something filled not only with emotion, but also with a heavy sense of responsibility and an ending we couldn't yet see. Even though nothing had been openly said, a silent awareness that something deeper had taken. We still talked like before, still laughed at the same small things, still maintained the appearance of normalcy, but underneath it all, something had shifted in a way neither of us could ignore. I began to notice how her presence affected me, how even the smallest interaction with her stayed in my mind longer than it should have, replaying itself in quiet moments when I was alone, and she seemed to drift closer in ways that were subtle, yet impossible to miss. It was in the pauses between words, in the way her voice softened when it was just the two of us, in the way her eyes searched mine, as if looking for something she couldn't find anywhere else. She started opening up more, not all at once, but in fragments, small pieces of her life that didn't quite fit the perfect. Not loud arguments or dramatic fights, but a quiet distance that had slowly grown over time. Like to people living parallel lives under the same roof. There was no clear villain in her story. No obvious reason to justify what was happening between us. And maybe that's what made it even more complicated. Real. And that's what made it dangerous. One evening, as we sat across from each other, the air heavy with everything left unsaid, there was a moment where time seemed to slow down. No words. No distractions, just a look that lasted a second too long. And in that single moment, everything we hadn't admitted silently came to the surface. It would have been so easy to cross the line then, to let emotion take over logic, to justify it as something harmless, something natural. But deep down, I knew the truth. We were standing at the edge of something that couldn't be undone. Because some choices don't just change a moment. They change lives. And as strong as the connection felt, as real as the emotions seemed, there was a weight behind it that couldn't be ignored, the kind of weight that comes with consequences, with guilt, with the quiet realization that not everything you feel is something you should follow. And maybe that's the hardest part. When your heart pulls you forward, but your conscience refuses to let you take the next step.